It's Training Tuesday. It's Training Tuesday. I know I'm like a minute late. I looked at they're 2 minutes late and I looked at the clock and went, holy cow. I have this beautiful reminder for Training Tuesdays that the church bells that are just up the street that way, chime at 6 o'clock and I hear them. And tonight I was looking at some notes I had made to talk about politics. We're talking about politics tonight, office politics. And I made some notes and I was looking at those and I heard the church bells. I was like, okay, it's time to go live. And then I just kept looking at my notes. So, and then they stopped suddenly, and that's kind of what woke me up. So, welcome to Training Tuesday. I'm here and I am present with you. And hello, Ashley. It's good to see you. My name is Natalie Hahn. I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting. I am your coach tonight. Tonight, we are talking about navigating office politics. How to win without even playing. And I'm going to give you five keys for making that happen. But I do want to talk about the political environment and when we play and when we don't play and why we make those choices. Because I think it's really important to understand that there are times when we do play politics. And there are times when it really isn't necessary. And identifying kind of where you are and where you're going to fit in this world and when you need to step up and when you need to step back is really important. This is part of just understanding corporate culture. And it happens, when I say corporate culture, I don't mean you have to work for some giant enterprise in order for this. Like some of the most politically driven environments I've worked in have been small family-run businesses where mom is warring with the son who's warring with his cousin who runs operations, and the mom is driving sales and the son is trying to, build product or whatever. But like that, I have seen some tense politicking going on in small family operations. Happens at the huge corporate level. It happens at every level. It happens pretty much in every industry. It happens in every type of environment. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So, hey, I am so glad, Ashley, that we're talking about something that you need to hear, and I'm hoping that then this is helpful for you, because here's the deal. We all deal in politics every day, and you may be a pawn in somebody's political game, and you may or may not know it. You may or may not know that you're a pawn, or how much of a pawn you are, or whether or not you're involved. And hey, Joyce, good to see you. Yeah, if you guys are here, say hello in the chat. Drop your, I meant to say this when I introduced myself. Drop your comments, ask questions, question me if you don't agree with something I'm saying. The more that we make this a conversation and a dialogue, the more fun it is. And politics is one of those things that it's so personality driven, which is kind of what makes it interesting, but also what makes it difficult. So sometimes it can be hard to give sort of blanket statements. But we are going to talk about it from kind of the 10,000 foot level anyway. Hello, Sue. Great to see you. So like I said, you may be a pawn in someone's political game, and you may or may not know it. And that's okay. Because I'm going to start with just the tenet that ignorance is bliss. Don't go looking for politics and don't go looking for political agendas if you're not already aware or embroiled or somehow in this mess. And the reason I say that is because if you go looking for it, you will find it. We find anything that we look for, except maybe your lost keys, right? But otherwise, when you go looking to see if somebody's lying for you and lying to you and you're digging and digging for the lie, you will find a lie. Now, it might be a very benign lie, like, yes, they ate the banana when they told you they didn't, but you will find a lie. Right? The beauty of the power of manifestation. Right? The beauty of manifestation is this idea that when we put our energy and our focus towards something, we can create it and we can make it happen. It also works in the negative. If we go looking for politics and political agendas, I guarantee you will find them, and they're there. They may not be as big a deal or as impactful, though, as you start to make them out to be once you go looking. So if you are living in ignorance and you're sitting here going, I don't work in a particularly political environment, great. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it that way. The 5 essential keys I'm going to talk about tonight still apply to you. They absolutely still apply, but don't go looking for drama where there isn't any already. And hey, Jackie, great to see you tonight. So do pay attention, though, to the conversations that are happening around you. Political situations become apparent when, I'd say, kind of 2 basic things happen. One is you're in a conversation, or you're in a meeting, you're hearing conversations, and something is just off. There's a gap. Like, there's been a conversation that you were not privy to, and now you've been brought in, and now there's a gap, and nobody seems to really have an interest in filling in the gap. Like, when you feel like you're brought into something and there's a chunk missing, there's usually politics at play. The other situation that's very common is when you're having a conversation, and whether in a group setting or even one-on-one, but you're having a conversation and you start to realize there's a whole other layer to this conversation that's happening. There's a subtext. There's a separate conversation going on, and you may not be privy to it. It may be a group conversation, and you start realizing that there's a subtext that John is getting and Jennifer is getting, and you're sitting there going, what's happening here? Because I hear what they're saying, but clearly there's a different meaning. Politics are going on. Those who play politics don't usually come flat out with the, here's what I'm trying to do, here's my agenda, here's how we're going to make it work. They show their hand, but they don't come out so directly, right? So they'll tell you the story, it just may not be the full story. So you might get the gossiping version or the complaining version. You get their side of their crusade because HR did them wrong, or Joe over in operations, threw them under the bus at a meeting. Like, you're getting a side of the story to join the crusade, to join the team. And when you start hearing that, when you start hearing people trying to bring you into their camp, right? Bring you into their drama, that's when you listen, the subtext is coming to surface. And that's when you start paying attention. And this is why I'm going to stick to my opening tenet. Ignorance is bliss. If you don't have to play politics, and you can do your job, and you can be happy, and you can see your path for advancement, and things are moving right along, you keep going. Keep going. Politics, it is a game. You're only good at it if you're very conscious of it, and if you have a few rules in place around it. And the reason why I say win at office politics without even playing is because my basic tenet, Dirty Girl Coaching, basic tenet is we don't play politics unless we have to. We don't. Playing politics means you have an agenda. And having an agenda, it's not about doing my best work. It's not about showing up as the best leader I can be. It's not about me doing the best I can for myself or my team. Having an agenda, I'm going to talk about what it means in a minute. I'm going to hold off on that for a minute. Let's go back to, here's what happens when you're in the political environment. When you're in the political environment, here's what happens when you get caught into the politics. It sucks all your energy. It sucks all your energy. How many of you here tonight actually, and just drop you can just drop a Y in the chat if you like, a yes or a no in the chat, but how many of you tonight feel that? You're working in you're working in an environment where there's some sort of politics at play, and it's digging at you, it's grinding at you, it's weighing you down. Politics, we lose our focus with politics, right? It's a very negative energy, and here's what happens. It happens subtly, and we get caught up in it even when we don't think we are. Or I should say we get pulled into it in a kind of a subtle way. Hey, Sue. And you know what, Sue? Just knowing the field that you're in the perfect role for exactly this kind of thing that happens. Because what happens is somebody comes in with their drama. Typically they come in with their story. And we sit back and we listen, and we're supportive, and we might even offer advice. But guess what that does? That takes our focus away from what we're doing, what we're there to do, and puts our focus squarely on somebody else's drama, somebody else's story. And here's the kicker, and we know this even as the advice comes out of our mouth, even as the support comes out of our mouth. The person who's complaining doesn't want our help. They don't want our advice. They want us to be their ally. Their agenda isn't to get your sage advice and go do something different, right? Their agenda is, I'm going to get Sue and I'm going to get Ashley over on my team, because if I can show this massive support I have, I can move my agenda forward. This is how we very easily and unwittingly sometimes become a pawn in someone else's agenda. It also means we waste time. We waste time. We become much less productive at work when our energy is focused on what happened to so-and-so in that meeting, what happened to so-and-so behind that closed door, instead of actually focusing on what we need to get done. And then it starts the negative energy spiral. Have you noticed that when you have a negative thought or a negative feeling, it's so easy to add on another and another and another. And now you're in a negative energy spiral and you hate your job. And you hate the people you work with, and you hate the environment you're at, and you don't get paid enough for the, right? It starts that spiral, and it is so hard to pull ourselves out of a spiral once we're in it. It's hard. Negative energy, catabolic energy. In my world, we call it catabolic energy. It's a heavy, weighty energy. And when we start to spiral, it takes an awful lot of conscious effort and awareness to pull ourselves up. So that's the first thing that happens in a very political environment, right? We lose focus, we lose energy. Now we're not being productive. Now we're not getting our stuff done. The political environment happens because there are competing agendas at play. Now, in any work environment, there's going to be somebody with an agenda. And in a fairly non-political one, it's the CEO, right? Or it's the executive team, because they have an agenda of things they want to get done and how they want to do it, and that's how they're running the business. You get into political environments when someone else comes in and they've got their own agenda that is not quite in alignment with the current operating agenda. And oftentimes you end up with multiple agendas, not just 2 warring agendas, but even 3 or 4. And then you end up with people running their own little agendas down here and over here. And now you have a highly politicized environment because it's happening at layers, at different layers. Clarity on the agendas can help you. If you work in one of these political environments where it feels like it's all politicized, just getting a little clarity on who's running what kind of agenda, having that can help you navigate it. Like I said, don't go looking for it if you don't need to. But if you're finding yourself in a way feeling stuck or trapped in a political environment and you don't see your way forward to doing your job well, to being productive, to getting that career path that you're looking for, then the first thing you want to do is look at what are the agendas at play. Who on the leadership team has their own agenda going on? And the agenda is, what's the goal? Right? What's the goal that this person is going after? Something to keep in mind. We're going to talk a bit more about that in a minute. Something to keep in mind in a political environment. And the one thing, if you are navigating politics, if you're playing the game, if you're just trying to keep your head underwater, whatever, above water, not underwater, above water, but you like stay out of the shadows, right? You have to remember politics are not personal. They are not personal. They feel incredibly personal, right? Because oftentimes when somebody's playing the game of politics, they're making moves, they're doing things and they're saying things. And if you're one of the pawns, what are you feeling like? You're feeling like they're ignoring me. They're pushing me over into the corner. They're not valuing my work. I've got 2 warring camps and I don't want to be on the losing side, right? We start to feel like it's about us. They're picking on our work, they're picking on our intelligence, they're picking on our experience, our expertise, and we are somehow not being valued the way we should in this game. But politicians, and I use that in the business sense, right? When we're playing politics, it's not personal. It's about the agenda. It is about what am I trying to get done? It's manipulation. It is about manipulation. So it's not about what they think of you personally. It's about where you're sitting on their chessboard and are you in the way of where they want to go. So it might feel like a personal attack. It might feel like an attack on your personal power. The driver behind it is rarely personal, though. The driver behind it is their agenda, their perceptions of what's happening in the environment, their emotions. Now, they themselves may have some emotion that's driving their agenda. It's not usually the emotion of, I don't like Ashley, therefore I'm going to make her life hell at work. it's usually more of the either Ashley's just in my way, oh well, or Ashley's part of the other team, therefore she's the enemy. But in neither case is it, I don't like Ashley, Ashley's not intelligent. I'm just picking on you, Ashley, because you raised your hand. But it's not a matter of personally. It's not a personal attack. It's a political one. If you respond, because it feels like a personal attack, if you respond in a personal way, two things happen. One is you could be up-leveling the amount of drama and creating an even bigger mess and a bigger explosion, because when you have one emotional person battling another emotional person, no good comes of that. No good comes of two negative emotions clashing. The other thing that happens, or that can happen, is it could be that your emotional personal reaction actually plays into the agenda. This person wanted to poke you, wanted to poke the bear, wanted to get that reaction to prove their point, to further their own agenda. So you're playing right into that pawn hand. The other thing to think about too is oftentimes people who play politics and are good at it, they're good at it. They know they're manipulating. They know what they're doing. We're usually dealing with there's always somebody better at politics than we are. We are usually dealing with somebody who's better at it than we are. So keep that in mind. When you have that emotional reaction, it's not that you don't have the right to be angry. It's not that you don't have the right even to express that you're angry. It's the how we do it that matters in politics. It's the how, it's the when, it's to the to whom, right? It is the game. If you choose to play your agenda, you will most likely lose. And you will most likely lose because there's always somebody smarter out there than us who's better at the game. And because if you're out there, so here's where women get mad when they come to me and say, I need help with office politics. This is where they get mad at me. My first direction is always going to be don't play. We don't play. Women who are high achievers, women who are ambitious, don't need to play politics. And I still believe that's absolutely true in most environments. In most environments, this is true. You don't have to play politics. And then if you're at, that C level, that executive level, where there is a bit of politicking and you can't help but be part of it, there is a way to play that does not rub against your values, does not create a sense of stress with your integrity, right? Does not create anxiety in you. And it is a form of it's a form of playing, and it's a form of not playing. Because here's the deal. When you have a political agenda, it's not about your goals. It's about control. Playing politics is about control. And the reason why it's so draining, and the reason why most of the time anyone and everyone who plays, one, they lose, two, it is a constant game. There's no end game with the political game at work. There is literally no end game. It's about controlling outcomes. It's about controlling people. It's about controlling the circumstances. Think about that. It is about control. Where in our lives do we have control over all the outcomes, all the people, and all the circumstances? Nowhere. But when we're playing politics, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We are trying to control to a specific outcome, which means we have to manage all the people and all the circumstances around those people to get there. No wonder people who play politics get tired, right? Huge amount of energy to be monitoring all the time, to be manipulating the environment all the time for all of those factors. And then even when you do succeed, right, when you have your small victories, too tired, too drained, too resentful of the wasted energy to enjoy the victory. So if you're going to choose to step into politics, then I'm going to ask that you do it with a high level of awareness about what it truly is you want to achieve. When you're at the executive levels, if you have warring, if you have, for example, a CEO who has their agenda and they're running the company, but there's a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, who has a different agenda, you end up with two different factions going on. which does disrupt how does business get executed. And now the chief product officer or the chief operating officer, they have to choose sides, or they have to figure out how to navigate around the middle, right? So when you're in that kind of environment, you have to be aware of the politics, but you don't have to play. Being aware of the politics, being aware of what the driver is. So the CFO is very risk averse. They're trying to save the company money, and for them, their self-worth, their self-value is wrapped up into how much money they can save the company. There's one example. So now I know his agenda is basically covering his ass, right? He's protecting himself and he's protecting the company, but he will do anything and everything he can to make sure there is a conservative play here. CEO, however, perhaps the CEO is a high risk taker because this is an entrepreneur who founded the company and he's used to taking big leaps. And he's confident that most of his big leaps are just going to work out. Well, when you have a risk-averse CFO, guess what? Those two have different agendas, because the CEO wants to spend money and go do big things, and the CFO wants to tamp everything down and keep it safe. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. But they have different agendas, which means they have different ways of going about work. When you're aware of that, then as you're navigating your role, depending on who you're interfacing with and for what, you can then say, okay, what do I need? I've been in marketing for 30 years. When I need something from the CFO, I know that I better present him with a solid plan, with solid numbers, with a return on the investment, with what it's going to do for the company, and I got to spell all of that out. So that's what I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him a very detailed plan. If he's agreed to give me my money and now I have to go sell it to the CEO to get approval to launch the plan, this is a big picture guy. This is the guy who wants to know the big benefit, so I'm going to leave the benefit in. He kind of doesn't care how much it costs as long as the CFO approves it. He wants to know the vision piece of it. He wants to know the story I'm going to tell him. What is it going to mean to the customers, and how is it going to bring more people in, right? So navigating political environments is a big part of just understanding what people's drivers are, so that you communicate your value and your story to them in the language they understand best. That is one way to navigate politics. It really is about adjusting how you tell your story to the person who's listening. That does not interfere with any of your values, does not interfere with your integrity. It does not interfere with how you show up as a leader. And in fact, it's how you show up as a really good leader, because you're listening for what's important to other people as you're communicating to them, and you're taking that information and you're delivering it. It's just smart. It's just smart. What happens in politics is we take it to another level, because now I'm not only presenting it to the CFO in the way that if I'm getting really into the politics, I'm not only presenting it to him in the way that I want, because I want his approval, but I might be going and rallying the VP underneath of finance and the controller, and I might be going to his buddy who works over in IT and rallying the troops and trying to persuade them also that my plan is the best plan. And I might put a bug in the ear of the CEO that I have this amazing idea, but his CFO isn't really approving it, and could he help me out, right? When I start playing those games, then I start getting into a level of, okay, am I really pitting people against each other just because I want an extra X amount for my budget, right? So we do have to be mindful of how we play these games and why we play these games. So here's the things. Let's get into where are we at? See, we're already at 6:26. All right, let's get into the 5 keys I promised. So I wanted to describe the political environment because there's layers to it. There's layers of where you get involved, when you don't get involved, how involved do you get, and then how do you play this game, keeping your integrity intact. First and foremost, of the 5 essential keys I'm going to talk about for a political environment: influencer or ally. I don't care whether you're the CEO and it's your company, or whether you just started and you're the lowest person on the totem pole kind of thing. Find an influencer or an ally who can help be a buffer for you and can help you navigate the politics. Doesn't mean they play the politics. It means they understand it. They know what's going on. And sometimes with your influencer or ally, you have to be aware of what is their agenda. Maybe they're also a political player and they have their own agenda, and that's okay. You just need to be aware. You need to know what it is. But finding an influencer and an ally means you can have somebody who plays the politics, creates the buffer, so that you can focus on your job. So that you can look ahead and say, there is a career path for me here. And this person, and maybe it's my boss, or maybe it's a skip level, right? 2 levels up, it's my boss's boss. Or maybe it's not even in my direct path, but this person over here, I know I can go to them when I have questions about something that's happening where I'm clearly not included in the conversation. But to get my job done, to do my things, I need extra support. Playing politics, when we play it well, when we do this in the way that is really all about furthering the bigger agenda, the agenda of the company, the agenda of my career. Playing politics well. It's not about being slimy or icky or in alignment. It's not about manipulating people, but it is about knowing where you have real conversations, where you create authentic connection. So first and foremost, find an influencer or an ally who can help you navigate the environment, either by being a buffer or just by providing some of that inside story of what the different agendas are. Where are people warring so I don't step on those toes? It's good to know. So that's key number 1, get an ally. Key number 2, your focus and your motivation have to be your top priority. Have to be. The minute we start playing political games, our focus and motivation are in supporting other people's agendas, other people's needs, and not our own. We play politics, and we're the pawn in politics when we're succumbing to a story rather than driving something forward. So you have to be clear. What is your focus for your career path? What is your focus for how you want to develop and grow as a leader? And what's motivating you? When we know what's motivating us, that's how we stay focused. That is how we stay focused. You guys have heard me talk about my early career, right? And my motivator was I had 3 kids and I was a single mom. So yeah, I was motivated to stay focused on my job and do a good job so I could continue to advance my career, which meant for me, politics, I was not interested. But you don't work in corporate America for 30 years without learning how to play politics. And sometimes suffering from the game of politics, right? Becoming somebody's pawn, becoming somebody's scapegoat. It happens. It happens. But it happens the most when we allow ourselves to be in the game. When you can hold yourself back and say, you know what? My focus is on getting this job done because this job leads to this next step in my career. And I'm motivated to do this because I want this next step in my career for whatever my reasons are. We're staying focused on a goal. And number 3 is your goals. Have clearly defined goals and milestones. Work for something definitive. It's not enough. You need to have your focus and your motivation to say, I want to be able to take care of myself and have a comfortable retirement. That's what's motivating me. My focus is on getting to this position in X number of years, or this level of salary in this number of years. That's what's driving me. Fabulous. But key number 3 is go a layer down. And now let's talk about the milestones. The milestones means that in the next 6 months, I need to get this done. And in the next year, I want to put these 2 things on my resume. Right? Set concrete milestones and goals that help you maintain your focus and your motivation. When we're working towards concrete things, it is so much easier for us to stay on track and not be distracted by the drama and the nonsense. And sometimes people are stirring up drama and nonsense because that's just what they do. And like I said, they don't want your advice. They don't want to make things better. They want to live in the drama and the nonsense. Let them. Let them. Key number 4, detachment from criticism and detachment from praise. One of the ways that we fall into the pattern of being somebody's pawn or being part of somebody's political agenda is because they told us what a great listener we were. They told us how much our support meant to them. They told us we weren't going to be one of the cool kids if we didn't join their crusade, right? Criticism is a huge motivator for women. It is not, by the way, a motivator for men. Men do not respond to criticism the way that women do, but boy, do we respond to criticism. And that motivates us to make changes or to do things differently or to join a club or to buy the thing. When we can detach from the criticism and praise of other people, because it is literally, whether it's a positive or a negative, whether it's a compliment or whether it's somebody sticking a dart at you, either way, it is literally just someone else's opinion. When we can detach from that, we can stay focused on our milestones and our goals and our motivation and our focus. And we have an ally there who's helping us navigate these waters. So find yourself that mentor, that coach, that boss, right? Whatever level it is, somebody who's willing to be your support in a political environment. Get your focus and your motivation in line. Detail out your milestones and your goals. And then we have to practice the detachment from criticism and praise. Doesn't matter if Mary over in accounting doesn't like what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if she thinks I'm snobby because I don't sit with her at lunch. I have these goals to hit. Pardon me. I have this longer term goal to reach. I've got to stay focused. 5. Key number 5. None of this happens, right? None of the success in either navigating or stepping back out of the political environment happens if we do not practice self-care. I know you're all groaning, right? Oh, seriously, seriously. So serious. If you are not taking care of your diet, taking care of your physical exercise, getting enough sleep, those 3 things are the most important things you can do for yourself. You want bubble baths? Take bubble baths. You want to wear fancy jewelry, put on makeup? Fine. Do all of that. Do whatever makes you feel good. But if you are not getting good sleep, eating a reasonable diet, getting some sort of form of physical action in your day, you're not practicing self-care, which means you are not showing up as your best self. When we are run down, when we are not taking care of ourselves, what happens? We fall into old patterns. And old patterns for a lot of us women are the patterns where we give and we give and we give and we don't say no. We don't hold our boundaries. And we're worried that if we're not nice and we don't agree and we don't go along, that we will be judged. Without self-care, there is no holding of boundaries. Yeah, exactly, Jackie. It's burnout. We burn out. And we have no defenses when we're in burnout mode. None. So, your 5 essential keys: find an influencer or an ally, focus, right? Get your motivation and your focus in step, detail your milestones and your goals, detach from criticism and praise, and practice self-care every single day. Every single day. So, these are all part of actually a new coaching program that I'm launching, where we go into detail each week on every one of these levels in order to get that active practice in. Because the goal is to create a confident foundation for you to navigate any environment. Whether it's highly political or not at all political, or you're launching your own business, these 5 keys still matter. No matter what you're doing, you still need an ally and an influencer on your side. You still need to stay focused and motivated on your long-term goals, and you still need short-term milestones and goals to go after so that you keep progress moving forward. You need to detach from criticism and praise, because that is one thing that holds us back, right? Other people's opinions, what if they think, always holds us down. And you got to practice the self-care, because that is where our inner strength comes from. When these 5 keys are in place, it will not matter how many competing agendas are floating around you. It doesn't matter if you're a pawn in someone else's game, because you're not playing the game. You're focused on you. Now, you have a job to do. You have excellence to pursue. You are a high performer. You can thrive in a highly political environment if the game that you're playing is your game. And your game is about winning at your goals. All right, I'm going to leave it there for tonight. So if you need to talk more about political environments, and like I said, this one gets tricky because everybody's environment is a little bit different. We all feel trapped in different ways in that political environment. So if you would like to talk more about your specific environment, how you're going to navigate that, how do you create that separation and that focus on your goals and that separation from criticism and praise, then drop the word dig in the comments and we'll do a Dirty Girl mini dig, which is a free 15-minute coaching call, but we're just going to focus on you, what's happening in your world, and how do we get you moving a little bit closer to playing your game instead of being the pawn in someone else's game. So just drop the word dig in the comments and I will reach out to you and we'll set that up. Otherwise, ladies, those are your 5 keys, all right? Find an influencer or an ally, find your focus, write down your detailed goals and milestones, practice detachment from criticism and praise, and practice self-care every single day. I hope you guys have a fabulous Tuesday night and rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you for next Training Tuesday. Have a great night, ladies.